They repeated it to me 5 times on the phone. We're not obligated to help you. As a cancer patient, just going through what I was going through, it hurt.
Tyler Wells spent years at an ad agency. Then he got diagnosed with brain cancer, worked through surgery, radiation, and chemo because he couldn't afford not to. And now he's independent and building on his own terms. Today, he's breaking down what actually happens when you need the corporate safety net, how he made his jump to independent while managing a chronic illness, and why unlimited PTO is the biggest bait and switch in corporate America. Welcome to Unrigged. I'm Kirk Coburn. The premise of this show is simple. The corporate game is rigged against experienced professionals. Unrigged is a show about how you get out. Today I have a special guest. His name is Tyler Wells. He spent 8 years at an ad agency in Knoxville in organic social media, which I want him to explain. And he built an awesome career. In 2024, he was diagnosed with brain cancer. And what happened next is one of the clearest examples I've ever seen of why the corporate promise is broken. Tyler, welcome to Unrigged.
Kirk, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Thanks for sharing. Your X post really stopped me cold. In fact, my wife sent it to me and said, you need to reach out to Tyler. But before we get into serious stuff, I've got to stop first. You told me that you're a big coffee snob. What's your order right now? And do you have a go-to spot in Knoxville?
My go-to spot in Knoxville is a place called Partial. It's one of those nicer coffee shops where they do the pour over and educate you about the bean types and origins.
Fantastic.
My go-to order right now is straight black coffee, no cream. I'm preferring the Ethiopian origins. I like the whole coffee shop experience, just going and reading or chatting with people and taking it slow for a minute.
You should. I need to take that advice more. And I've been experimenting. Have you heard? There's a company out there called Trade Coffee.
Yeah.
And they gave me a quiz, and I'm not sure I even filled it out right, but I'm a French press guy myself, simple, no filters, black.
Yeah.
I love it. But I'm still trying to figure out the right bean, and I'm going to get there at some point. But let's just settle a debate real quick. When you say UT, you're not talking about the Longhorns, are you?
No, I'm talking about the real UT in Knoxville, Tennessee, the university.
Love it. I mean, talking about two guys from different UTs, that's hilarious. I'm a big fan of Knoxville, great little town. Paint the picture for me. You 8 years at an agency. Did you think you'd be there forever?
Typically, agencies have a short lifespan for their employees. It's typical for us to jump around a little bit. The average creative at an ad agency stays there just for a few years and then they jump on to the next endeavor, which is, typically another ad agency. But in Knoxville, it's kind of different.
But you were there for a good 8 years. So what?
I was here 8 years. In Knoxville, we don't have an ad agency across the street that you can just walk over to and apply. It's not like New York. But no, I started at the ad agency here in Knoxville as a copywriter. I was in the mortgage industry for a long time at a large mobile home manufacturer here and kind of got bored with it and wanted to use my journalism degree a little bit, so got into writing and was hired on as a copywriter and then got into more of the social media space as the years went on.
So what happened? Set me up. What did a normal day look like before the diagnosis? And then we're going to jump into the heavy stuff. And I really appreciate you telling us all about that because it affects a lot of people. The number one question I get from a lot of fractional executives is health insurance because of this exact kind of issues.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I was like any 30-year-old. I was very dedicated to my career, ad agencies, long hours. I was working in the social media space at that point. So a lot of strategy, a lot of reporting, a lot of running the numbers, a lot of building out calendars, a lot of making content, a lot of responding to people online, but it's long hours and it's not a typical you start at 9 a.m., you end at 5 p.m. type of job. This comment's blowing up at 10 p.m. You better hop on your phone and respond to this. It can be a lot for people.
You're head down, focused on your career. You're now a social media expert. Tell me, when did you find out you had brain cancer?
Yeah, so I was having undiagnosed seizures for a couple of years prior to that. Typically, people think of seizures as falling over, convulsing, but there's this type of rare seizure that, maybe you just smell something, or maybe you get afraid, or maybe your vision changes a little bit, but not very evident. So I was having those. Doctors just thought it was anxiety or an anxiety response. And one day, no medication's working. I was on every medication you could think of for anxiety and depression, all those things. One day I just went into my doctor and asked, hey, I don't think this is it. I'd like to, I've been doing my own research. I'd like to get checked for possible seizures. So they sent me for a seizure test, and they said, sure enough, you're having seizures. Next step is send you to an MRI. Got the MRI, and they said, yeah, you've got a tumor in there. A week later, I was at Vanderbilt, which is a large hospital here in about 3 hours west in Nashville, another SEC school, and was having
Good year,
surgery.
by the way.
Yeah, I did have a good year. I was in surgery a week later to remove most of it.
And how are you doing now? Are you cancer free?
I'm not cancer free in the typical sense. I'm not showing any growth of the remaining tumor. So in a typical cancer situation, you might call that no evidence of disease, but with brain tumors, they just say you're stable. After the surgery, I did some radiation, 6 weeks of radiation, then a year of chemotherapy. And now I'm just being monitored every few months at Vanderbilt.
That's amazing news, by the way. Congrats, Tyler.
Thank you.
Tell us, let's go back to work. So you're number one, amazing self-diagnosis. That's insane, but glad you did that. What was your first thought about work? You found out you have to get surgery. Take me back to that point.
I got the call. It's funny you asked that. When I got the call, I was at that coffee shop I mentioned earlier, and I was working on a deck. All advertising in it essentially is working on deck after deck. And I was working on a deck and got the call. And I remember the feeling immediately of just thinking, wow, this isn't that important. I need to not do this for a second. And it was an instant change. Like, this just doesn't feel important. Because at the time, Kirk, I didn't know. They just told me I had a tumor. I didn't know what the prognosis was, what was ahead. Like, I just knew immediately I had some kind of tumor in my head. So I remember sending a Slack message to my manager and like, hey, I've got to take the rest of the day off, and didn't say anything else. And that was the last time I worked for 3 months.
And you have a son and a wife.
My son was 2 at the time.
Did you go home at that point? What did you do?
I finished my coffee because that was important, and then I went home and immediately started calling hospitals in the southeast to see who could see me the soonest. It was definitely an unreal day. Wow. I remember feeling just numb, your body kind of just in shock.
At this point, career goes out the window, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, not thinking of career at all at this point. Although, after surgery, I was itching a little bit to get back to it just for some normalcy.
So walk me through the conversation. Your post-surgery, thank goodness it went well. And you immediately jump into chemo, which you need time to do. What did work say?
Yeah, so work gave me some time off after surgery, and then going to radiation and then chemo. And, the first few months of chemo were okay. But around that
Are you back working at this point?
Yeah, I was back working I work through radiation and chemotherapy, which is incredible. The more people I talk to is an incredibly sad truth that people have to work through chemo, radiation, and their cancer treatment because they just can't afford to not. So they push their bodies to work through, which is, incredible. My chemo started hitting me about that 3-month mark where I started getting really bad brain fog, had concentration issues. And like I said, I'm working in a creative job that requires me to be creative. When your brain isn't cooperating, it is impossible to be creative. It just does not work like that. And so I came to my job and like, hey, I need some help here. I just struggling with brain fog, struggling through the chemotherapy, getting tired easily. And HR comes back to me and says, okay, just submit a accommodation request, which is a formal request for whatever accommodation you think you need. And so I talked to my doctors at Vanderbilt. We discussed what I needed. They wrote a really nice letter for me, which I submitted for my accommodation request. And the accommodation was simply, I need a temporary lighter workload while I'm on chemotherapy. I can't remember how many clients I was on at the time. Anyone that works in advertising knows it's not uncommon to be on a bunch of clients that take just little bits of your time. I was on 5 or 6 clients, overseeing a team, and all I wanted was a few clients taken off of me. So I could focus on 1 or 2 things because I was having those focus issues. And they came back, HR came back, which I know you've talked about HR quite a bit. They're my best friend. Came back and said, well, the only way we can lighten your workload is to reduce your schedule so you wouldn't be working the full 40 hours a week. And I said, okay, I'll just use my unlimited time off, which is a key thing here. We have at this employer what's called unlimited time off, which as quickly learned is not unlimited. Like most everything that says it's unlimited, it's not truly unlimited. All unlimited means is it's up to their discretion on how much time you can take off. And,
so when they sold you on the job originally, what did you think unlimited time off meant?
The unlimited time off is a new thing. When I first was hired, it was 15 days.
Right.
I remember them talking about unlimited time off when they gave it to us a few years ago, just having the freedom to take off when you want.
As a guy who started multiple companies, the only reason I would create a policy like that was for retention, attracting great talent and keeping great talent. So when you took your unlimited time off, what happened?
Well, I didn't get to take it initially. I asked them if I could take unlimited time off to reduce my schedule. This would have been a few days a week or a few days a month, something like that. And they came back to me and said that would be considered a abuse of the unlimited time off policy. And the policy really is just a sentence or two in the big employee handbook that's 500 pages long that says the company ultimately gets to decide based on business needs what you can take and what you can't take off. So anyway, they asked me to take FMLA leave, which guarantees your job but is not paid. And of course I was confused why I would need to take FMLA instead of just using that unlimited time off. It was bizarre.
I don't want to pick on the company, Tyler, but is this a global company?
Recently they went global.
So it's a big organization.
Yes, it's a quite large organization now. When I first joined, it was very small and had exponential growth in the 8 years I was there.
Were the founders in Knoxville?
Yes, the founders and headquarters are here in Knoxville.
So when they came back and said it's an abuse of policy, who said that to you? Was that HR or the CEO? Who told you this? HR.
HR told me directly. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
unbelievable.
And they told me this too, Kirk, and I'll never forget it because they repeated it to me 5 times on the phone. They kept saying, "We're not obligated to help you. We're not obligated to help you." And
Wow.
that really, as a cancer patient, just going through what I was going through, it hurt. To hear your employer tell you that they're not obligated to help you hurts.
One of the things, Tyler, that I talk to a lot of fractional executives that are making this transition. It doesn't matter how intelligent you are, but if you have a box, and one of those boxes that many of us were taught is that you go get a job and they're loyal to you as long as you do a good job.
Yeah.
It's hard for people to realize that box is not correct. No one cares about you but you in many ways. Sorry this happened to you, by the way. It's not surprising, but it's super unfortunate. I mean, look, just to make sure, this company that has unlimited PTO, that's what they offered to keep to retain guys like you. And when you actually needed it, 2 to 3 days a month, while you're on chemo, they called it an abuse of the policy.
That's
that right?
So I could have a little reduction in my schedule while I was taking chemo. That's right.
Here's the thing about unlimited PTO. It costs the company nothing to offer. Most people don't even use it. It's a recruiting tool, but the second someone actually needs it, the second it might cost them something, suddenly there's rules, suddenly there's an abuse. That's called a bait and switch.
Yeah. And Kirk, it was almost when they announced that policy was going to into effect, the unlimited PTO policy, it was almost instant. People were taking less time off. I mean, it was almost overnight. The amount of time people take off is so minimal. I've not worked at a company where people take off so few days. I think it's a direct result of that policy. And it's not a secret. I talk to other people who work for companies that have that unlimited PTO policy, and it's the same way. It's not unique to this company. It's unique to the unlimited PTO policy.
Wow. Well, we're going to get there. I want to come back to that, but let's talk about how did you feel after they informed you it was an abuse of the policy? How did that make you feel?
It made me feel defeated, right? Like I'm trying to heal as best as I can from this chemo that is essentially poisoning my body, which I had to take 5 days a month. It felt like they didn't care about me.
I mean, if you don't mind sharing, what did your wife say about that?
She agreed that it was awful. She couldn't believe it. Everyone I told couldn't believe that would be the stance of a company. And, you know, chemo's expensive. Cancer's expensive. Couldn't afford to take this unpaid FMLA time.
I mean, that's part of the U.S. system of health insurance is employers pay half or more than half for their employees, but there's a reason they have it is because people do get sick. That's what it's for. And then they're trying to keep you from using it, which sounds crazy. So there's a bright side of this. Let's get to it. You decided to go independent. But before we get there, I loved your tweet, and I know you've been posting.
X-post.
X-post.
We call it tweet.
Good. You said, until the day I die, I'm going to fight for both. If you remember the tweet, I'll read it back for you. But if you do remember, tell me what that means to you, and what do you mean by it?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in a cancer support group, and we talk a lot about not wanting sympathy from people. We don't want people to feel bad for us, but we do want people to empathize. A lot of that is educating the public on what it's like to be a young professional with a young family diagnosed with something as serious as brain cancer or any chronic illness. Educating on the difficulties of that goes beyond the surgery. When I had a giant scar on the side of my head, you can't even see it anymore. That's something you can see, right? You know I've just had surgery. You know I might need time to heal. But when you start doing that internal medication like the chemo or the radiation, you can't really see the effects physically. People expect you to be completely normal, and that's not the case. Even if you're young and healthy, it's taking quite a toll on your body. And so I think fighting for that education, right? Like fighting the system and, being that voice for people that can't always speak for themselves because they're going through a very difficult treatment, a very difficult life change. And a lot of people that I've talked to, Kirk, and I don't blame them at all, they're just timid or afraid to speak out up for themselves, especially when it comes to their employer, because they need that money to pay their, not just medical bills, but the same bills that everyone has. So it's difficult to speak up for fear of losing your jobs, especially right now in the advertising space where half of my LinkedIn is people getting laid off from ad agencies. I get it, not wanting to speak up and just have that security of your job.
What are you doing now, Tyler? How are you paying for medical insurance at this point?
Yeah, I'm lucky that my medical insurance is through my spouse.
Okay.
She
Which
had
is
the better.
Absolutely.
Yeah, she had the better medical insurance, so we went with hers. That made the transition to going out on my own a little easier. Otherwise, it's a tremendous expense, as you know.
I've written about this, and I'm going to provide it in the show notes, but there is affordable medical insurance for independent professionals. There are affordable insurance plans out there that are actually good. I'm on one of these plans, and it's equivalent to what I had at a big company. So thank goodness. Yeah. So that is happening, and there are good people out there. I'm glad that you have good insurance. Let's talk about going independent. I'd love to hear more about when did you decide to do this? Yeah. And was it because of the unlimited PTO rug taken out from underneath you, or tell me more about it?
Yeah, it was about that time I decided that once I got done with the treatment, which was October, and once I started feeling better, I was going to start looking for something, because eventually, hopefully it's many years from now, I'm going to need more treatment, perhaps another surgery. Kirk, I just didn't want to go through that again. I didn't want to fight those battles while I'm trying to fight this disease. So the trust was shattered there. And I decided to look for something else. Once I started feeling better after the chemotherapy, so December or January, it's not unusual for advertising professionals, especially in the creative space, to go freelance after their stint at ad agencies. So I started talking to people that had worked at my agency and others that had done that, and heard good stories from them about how good it felt to be pitching yourself instead of an agency. And it made sense to me from a health perspective. If I ever, God forbid, have to go through more treatment or another surgery, I can take off on my own terms.
Yeah.
I don't have to ask anybody.
That's, there's nothing more free. I tell, other fractional executives, I'm like, I'm probably going to go hit golf balls after this podcast. Mm-hmm. Now, it's basically early afternoon on a Monday because I can, but I also worked all day Saturday and Sunday because I had a lot of work to do. But the good news is it's on my terms, not on someone else's. So has that been a real freeing concept for you now that you're on your own?
Yeah, absolutely. If I want to go hit golf balls on a Monday, I'll just work on Sunday, do what I need to do so I can go hit the range on a Monday. It's totally freeing, especially with existing medical conditions. I still have to go every once in a while for checkups, blood work, all the things. And to be able to do that without having to worry about getting projects covered by somebody else is certainly freeing. There's something quite nice about being your own boss.
So besides the health insurance, which is a real fear for people,
Yeah.
and there are solutions, what's scarier to you? I have many people, I just got off the phone with a marketing executive. She was a chief marketing officer at a rather large company, and now she's on her own, but she is scared to go fractional, and she's older. I spend a lot of time with people over 40 that are experienced professionals, but they're so scared to go out on their own. But the amount of opportunity to get a job as you get older is harder and harder. Tell me a little bit about that fear factor for you on doing it on your own, putting a shingle out there. How did you get over that? Was there a fear? I mean, it definitely, you said you're all, in some ways, they, in many ways, betrayed you. Not many ways, in every way they betrayed you. Screw those guys. But tell me about the fear factor of going out on your own. Or was this something in the cards and you knew it was just a matter of time?
The biggest fear I had going out on my own, as opposed to taking another 40-hour a week typical job, is certainly the income, right? There's security, or at least some financial security, I suppose, in having a steady paycheck that you know is the same amount every 2 weeks. So now, when I leave, I'm going to go making X amount to zero, essentially. Fingers crossed I get some clients soon. The financial aspect is certainly my biggest fear. Medical bills, mortgage, car payment, the same bills everyone has, and got a child in daycare, and anyone with a young kid can speak to how expensive daycare is these days. I think that just losing that steady paycheck is my biggest fear.
So let's get practical. Are you thinking project work, or where are you in the process? And tell our listeners more about what is the skill set you're bringing to the market and what are the problems you solve?
Yeah, to answer the first question, I think, project basis or more of a continual thing. A lot of people know that they need to be on social media for their business, but they don't know exactly how. They know what they like on social media. They see a TikTok that they like, or they see an Instagram post that they like, but they don't know how to put that in their own brand voice. They don't know how to make it unique to them. Some people can be a little fearful of it. They don't want to make a mistake. So that's what I do. I have worked in social media strategy. I've done everything from make content calendars, built out tone of voices, built out the strategies. And I've even, we take our iPhones here and we go out and capture content. We film and edit TikToks or Instagram Reels or write tweets or whatever they're called, as you said, X posts or threads or whatever it is. But making sure to create content that only makes sense for you to create. Anyone can go out there with their phone and take a picture of some food or whatever your business is, but making sure that resonates with an audience and conveys your brand, your voice, your goals. That's a little trickier, and that's what I've been doing the last 8 or 9 years, and what I'm hoping to do freelance is just be a
The good news is you
kind of
have
one-stop shop.
You have 8 years of agency experience with dozens of companies. So
Yeah.
you've seen a lot over that time. Anything that stands out, sort of experience across multiple clients, what has that done for you? And how do you bring that to someone that asks, hey, how can you help me?
Yeah, I think the best thing about working with multiple clients is you get to work with different visual styles, work with different voices, work with different goals. A baked bean company, for example, has different goals than an insurance company. But getting to work with each one of those has been helpful. People think they have to be bizarre on social media these days to capture an audience, but you don't. You just have to be interesting to the people you're trying to reach. You don't have to go viral all the time, to be successful.
Can't model viral into your business strategy.
No, well, you'd be surprised how many people have asked that before.
I always ask social media companies that question because I just want to hear
Yeah.
if they're telling me, yes, I can make you go viral, I know they're lying.
Can't
Fun
make
to
you go.
ask them.
I cannot. I will disclose that up front. I cannot make you go viral. I will try my best, but I can't control the algorithm.
Tyler, do you have a system for finding clients right now, or are you relying on your network?
Right now, I'm just relying on my network. I've built up quite a good one over the 8 years that I've been doing this. So right now, I've been talking to a lot of potential clients, a lot of agencies who, they've got a client that needs some social media help, but they don't need to hire someone full time to do it. Been talking to some smaller places that, again, they don't need to hire someone, pay them 40 hours a week, pay them benefits. They just need someone to work 3 hours a week on this one client or this one account.
Here's the thing, network gets you your first client, maybe your second, but network doesn't scale. Eventually, you need a process, and that's really the difference between freelancing and building a practice. The good news is you have runway, your wife is working, but what's your timeline? What is your, I have to be cash flowing or being break even cash flowing by a certain date? Do you have those sort of goals and projections?
That's all, Kirk, right now it's a little rough. I would answer that, hopefully in 3 to 4 months would be cash flow neutral or break even, if you will. But yeah, I've thought about that very thing. I've built up this network, but they can only do so much. It can only go so far. So after I've used those resources, what's next?
I said process beats network, and I built a system that has been used in over 2,000 placements of fractional marketing executives. So there's a way to do it, which is the good news. But it's blocking and tackling and being consistent, which is what you tell your clients. There is no viral. You just have to keep posting and being consistent and being interesting. You need to find you interesting or they're not going to read it. And that's absolutely for sure. We can talk more about that. But I want to know, what's the thing you don't post about on LinkedIn?
That's a good question. I post about almost everything on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's interesting because it was strictly professional, but now people are going outside that box a little bit. I posted about my son and family. I posted about my job. I posted about my cancer. I probably won't post when I'm eating for dinner tonight. I'll say that.
What is some of the most surprising feedback you've received from your posts?
What has been surprising is the amount of support I've gotten. I figured I would get some, maybe some likes, but the amount of replies and private messages I've gotten from people saying, I'm not posting about this publicly, but I went through something very similar with my employer. That has been surprising to me, that it is such a common, the stories are a little different, but it is so common for those with cancer or other chronic illness to run up against issues with their employer. It's really, really heartbreaking and just staggering the amount of people that have had issues with that. It's sad because in some cases they're literally fighting for their lives and then they're asked to fight their employers on top of that.
I actually am speechless because as a founder and CEO of multiple companies, I can't imagine turning my back on one of my people. It just doesn't resonate with me, especially as a father. It makes no sense to me. If you had one thing to tell the founders of this company, what would you tell them? If they listen to this and they're like, okay, where did we get it wrong? What would you say, Tyler? You've been public, so what would you tell them?
I think it's simple, and I have told them this, that the work is important and let's take it serious. But at the end of the day, it's about people. The work doesn't get done without people. We all have to work, right? Unless you win the lottery or you're generationally wealthy, we all have to work. We're all in this together. So let's put each other first. Let's put people first over the work. And that's my message, is just, reminding them to put people over the work.
That's a great message, Tyler. One of the good news is for many people going out on their own is it's easier to have a conversation, whether it's with an executive or with someone hiring for fractional work, than it is to be an employee. I have found even executives that are interviewing for the number 2 position at a company, it's a buyer's market. Employers are the buyers. And so as a seller, as an employee, you're talking about, I've done everything under the sun. I hope you find something in my resume to find me interesting. When you switch over to fractional, you're talking about your core purpose. You're talking about your value prop. This is the problems I solve. When you're talking to a hiring manager or a CEO, you switch from, hey, I will answer your questions, please hire me, to, hey, I'm here to qualify you to figure out if I can even help you. I solve these problems. Tell me about your problems. And then you can diagnose and help them. That really makes it easier for them to hire you, but also makes it easier for you to land opportunities, because you're no longer in a pool of 10,000 others. It really is freeing to do it.
Yeah, you're not in a pool of 10,000 others where some kind of recruiting HR computer system is looking for certain keywords, and then you're
you're out. Most
you're
people
out
are
before
out.
you begin.
So someone's listening to this right now, and maybe they're in golden handcuffs. Maybe they've just got diagnosed with horrible news. Maybe they realize that their unlimited PTO isn't unlimited either. What do you want them to hear?
I think the most important thing, I've talked to many cancer patients, many chronically ill people, the biggest thing to know is that you are not alone. You are not suffering alone. Nothing you're experiencing with your illness, with your family, with your employer, it's all been experienced by someone before. It's not new to you. It feels new to you, but there's people out there that have gone through the same thing, and they're more than willing to help you, to listen. There's a community out there that have gone through the same things that you're going through, and the same things that you're feeling, they've felt.
Where can people find you, Tyler? I'm going to have you in the show notes below, but tell people where they can find you.
I'm very active on LinkedIn. You can find me on there.
But you won't know what you're eating for dinner, but you should post about what coffee you're drinking, because that people will want to know.
That'll be my next. We're coming up with content ideas right here. My portfolio with my freelance services is the website Tyler, Tyler, Wells, WELLS.me.
Tyler, thanks for telling the story. I know it's not easy, but it matters. If Tyler's story hit close to home, if you're sitting there thinking, that could be me, I built something for you. It's a 3-minute quiz that tells you exactly where you stand. And I have other tools for you to help you. And Tyler, I'm going to give this to you, which is going to be very helpful, and I'll give it to you offline.
Yeah.
No pitch, just clarity, but you can go to the return, RETERN, which is a bird, by the way, thereturn.com/quiz. It's 3 minutes. You'll know exactly where you are and what to do next. Because HR filters you out, founders don't. I'm Kirk Coburn. This is Unrigged. See you next week.